Alrighty, good morning everybody. It's Wednesday, August 10th, 2022. We are starting just a few minutes late, so I'm going to get right into it. Yesterday, there really was nothing too exciting to really talk about, but as you guys know, I always like to come in and show you something you can learn from. And just want to show you another little kind of clinic in Fibonacci analysis. If you look what happened here yesterday, some really sweet stuff. So we came down, bounced up, and basically held 50% here coming into the open. If you go ahead and follow through for the whole day here, if you continue to draw your fib for the basically from the overnight high all the way down to these new lows, look what happens here. Market holds the 38% retracement. We make new lows, market holds the 50% retracement, and that's basically all morning. It came down, it held the 50 here, came down, held the 38 here, came down, held the 50% here. So a nice little kind of expose on using Fibonacci to pinpoint areas in the market where you typically will see turns. So just wanted to mention that. Outside of that, nothing else too sexy. They did come down right out of the open and hold the VWAP. So if you did try VWAP yesterday, again, we had very bearish market internals, right? So we came into the open, everything looked very heavy, and they pushed right into VWAP here. So an opportunity to try it. It only broke by 5 ticks, and then that was it. We sold off to the low of the day at that point and never came back. So that was a nice little opportunity there. And then the other opportunity the only other sexy opportunity was to try VWAP the 2 other times that it was tested here about an hour after the market opened there. So that's it. There was nothing else sexy. It was very choppy, sideways, no beautiful holds really. There were some nice holds of our eye levels in some instances, but let's go ahead and jump into today. Obviously a huge spike here in the overnight session thanks to the CPI news. CPI did not look very good. I mean, we're below the forecast, we're below the previous month, below the previous year on all these numbers. So despite the fact that it was not good, the market popped, and where did we come up to? Right into this area we've been really emphasizing for about a week or two now. And that is the major high at 42.0475 and the major eye level 42.03 here. So this little basically 2-point pocket up top is what we would expect to be a pretty strong resistance here coming into the open. So let's go ahead and jump up to our daily charts, see what signals we can focus in on this morning, and then we'll get into the levels. So we're going to zoom out, go up to, well, first let me just mention the weekly chart. Remember, this has been an ongoing thing. So we're almost up to that major high 0475. If the market does go ahead and break on through, that bearish divergence we've been mentioning for I would say maybe 2 or 3 weeks now is not going to be there anymore. So this is going to be a critical area this morning, assuming they continue to push, which I also have some skepticism on that we'll talk about. So let's get down to the daily here. And it's been pretty messy for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 days here. Going into the past, you can see the daily divergences that we're getting are fairly spaced out, right? They will eventually form when we're getting to highs, and then we get sell-offs, and then it will form off the lows. The last few days, it's just been almost like every day we get a counter signal, and it's starting to coil up over here, obviously, getting right to that critical level, that 0475. And so yesterday, remember we said coming into the open, we did have off of the previous daily high, we had a bearish divergence. So we were expecting the market could potentially pull back going into yesterday's morning, along with the 4-hour and the hourly bearish signal. So the expectation was we would go ahead and push lower. The market did, like we saw in the first few minutes of the pre-market, the market did continue to fall and kind of inch a little bit lower. But then at some point, it did kind of come back and try to recover. We did close with a red candle, but it did bounce and try to recover. And then coming into this morning, we all saw with the CPI news, it just popped up and retraced not only all of yesterday's price action, but all of Monday's price action. So everything was looking bearish. We did get a bullish divergence off of yesterday's low. So when this candle closed yesterday, going into the afternoon's Globex session, you should have been able to go to your charts and see there was a bullish divergence right off that low. It wasn't necessarily confirmed because we need that next bar to then confirm the signal, but you should have had a clue, hey, I see a potential bullish divergence on this pullback. And then you should have been able to go down to your 4-hour and go back to, again, go to the close of yesterday and noticed, well, the 4-hour also has a pretty nice bullish divergence as well. So going into the overnight session, you should have had a little bit of a bullish bias, and look what happened here off CPI. And I'm telling you this happens so often that if you were just to go to the end of the day, wait for the market to close, find the most, when you get these confluences, when you see the confluences, it's not going to set up every single day. It might be a few days where no type of setup like this occurs, but when you get a close and the 4-hour, the daily, and the hourly, I believe as well, also show bullish divergences off of the lows of the day, that's a good clue that going into the going into the afternoon Globex session, you could expect a move in that direction, and then if it doesn't hold, it's a nice good clue to go ahead and short it, in this case in a long setup. So sure enough, again, we had a bullish clue on the very strong high time frames going into last night's session. Sure enough, CPI hit and we got a bounce. So not too surprising. We see this happen all the time. I always go back to COVID and point out that there was a bearish setup on the higher time frames. We're not talking about a 10-minute setup, an hourly setup. We're talking about the daily, I think maybe even the weekly. I don't want to have to eat my words here, but think even the weekly, and then down, daily, 4-hour, everything lined up. And then, the next day, the whole market began its huge chug back down to 2100. So these signals, if you just catch them at the end of the day, catch them at the open, they typically are going to help you orient yourselves for where the bigger move is going to be. And then if it doesn't actually play out, you do the counter move, right? So this morning, we have all the bullish divergences from yesterday's low. You can see it on the daily, which is really one of the strongest time frames to rely on for our intraday trading. And you can see it on the 4-hour and the hourly. We've got the pop. And here's the thing. This is the caveat I said I want to mention here. We did pop up to make a new high in comparison to the last, I don't even know what this is. Could probably count it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the last 9, 10 weeks is the high. This high up here is showing at the moment, and we need to keep in mind this is a daily candle that really hasn't technically gotten a chance to take off just yet. So this candle is going to obviously change as the day unfolds. But if we don't end up coming up to get through the high of the overnight session after this CPI pop, we will now have a counter bearish signal off that high. Again, assuming everything looks the way it looks right now, and this candle closes with the same RVI level here, and we don't break the high of the overnight session, we will have now another counter signal, and you can see how it's coiling up here. So just be aware of that. On the 4-hour as well, if you look at the big pop we just got here in the overnight session, there's also a 4-hour bearish signal from there. Again, if this candle closes the way it looks now, which it will close in about 30 minutes from now or about 40 minutes from now, if we don't pop up through there and the RVI stays lower than it was back here towards the end of Monday, we'll have a 4-hour bearish signal as well. Same thing, I believe, on the 60-minute. You can see huge pop to a new high, huge push lower on the RVI. All of these are clues, and this is now an official signal on the 60-minute. I believe we also have an official close signal, bearish signal from the overnight high on the 30-minute. So everything's kind of lining up such that if we don't break through the high of the overnight session, or if we just kind of pop through it and then fail, that's our clue to get short and start riding this market back down. How many times do we see the market peak up through a high and then go ahead and fail? It's been a very, very popular thing for months now to see us inch higher, inch higher, inch higher, pull back, market pushes inches a little bit further, and then a huge sell-off again. So I won't be surprised if that's what we see happen here up here this morning. So again, not being able to get through the high of the overnight session gives us a huge smattering of bearish signals on all time frames, which should lead to a larger pullback. And then again, the caveat of that is it can peak up just a little bit and fail, and that's good enough. So that's what we're seeing as far as biases go this morning. Those are the signals that we're dealing with. And I'm telling you, if you ignore the signals, you end up screwing yourself over. So don't ignore the signals. So let's look at the levels for this morning. If indeed the market does not get through the overnight high, or it just peaks on through and then fails from there, we're looking at all these same levels down below us as far as the major and minor high levels go, and then our major swing highs that we've marked weeks and weeks ago. The only other levels that I'm really looking at here this morning are our daily power levels. We do have the high of yesterday, which, as you can see, pretty good ledge here, where if the market pulls back this morning, wouldn't be surprising to see them use that as a support to then attempt to bounce back up. Don't forget about the high of yesterday there at 55. And then a little bit deeper, the other power levels are all kind of strewn together here. We've got the 50% line, we've got the close of yesterday, we've got our holy orange power level all right in this kind of choppy area of the chart. So what I can tell you is that the close of yesterday, right here, I think that's 41.29 quarter, was also a really strong area of resistance from our Globex session. So there's this little pocket of strong resistance right at the close of yesterday, or the high of yesterday, and then the close of yesterday is right where we came up into in the overnight session, and then got a failure down to lows of the overnight session here. So that level as well looks somewhat interesting to me. Outside of that, the major level, remember, we've been watching is 40.81. So if the bears can go ahead and chug on through this mess, if they do end up failing from this high, and they can get down through all this stuff and come down, remember 40.81 is really the important area that I'm watching. So if they can't get through 81, it's probably going to be more play up here for an attempt to bounce. If they get through 81, it's a nice straight shot down to all these targets that we've been mentioning down below us. On the flip side of things here, if the bulls do continue to rip with the current trend that we're seeing, and they can go ahead and pop on through the overnight high and through this critical level at 0475, then we're looking at all these targets up above, which again we've mentioned in previous sessions. So that's basically it for our pre-market. A potential higher time frame bearish signal from the overnight high. We have to wait about 30 minutes after the open to get the 4-hour signal, and then of course our daily signal. Unfortunately, you have to wait till the end of the day, but we can continue to monitor it and see where this RVI is kind of moving throughout the day. And if it continues to stay lower than it was 2 days ago, we will probably have that signal when it closes. So that's what I'll leave you with. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of an orientation as to what you want to do this morning. And I think that's it. So for all those watching out on YouTube, have a great day, and we'll be back tomorrow.